Hey Olin, welcome to a brand new Geek Freaks. I am Frank, one of your two hosts in this episode. We're also joined by Jonathan. We have so much to discuss today, as we always do. First off, we have a review for Beetlejuice. Me and Jonathan watched it together. We had a lot of fun, but there are some flaws we'll be discussing. We're also going to be talking about George R. R. Martin's recent criticisms for House of the Dragon. Was George right in doing this? We've got a first look at that Minecraft trailer. Minecraft's being made into a movie. Was that a good move? And next, California Senate passes a landmark law that requires consent for AI replicas of deceased performers. It's a big step forward in how we handle AI and CGI, and could be setting a precedent of how the entertainment industry will be working going forward. Lastly, we have an interview with showrunner Daniel Romer. Daniel's in charge of the 2024 show Chaser on Amazon Prime. Chaser is a thrilling series all about a video editor that discovers he has the power to re-edit the last 24 hours. While his video editor, Eddie, played by Russ Russo, enjoys his powers, he realized he might be in more danger than he thought. Join me and Daniel as we discuss this fantastic show at the end of this episode. And don't forget to click around in the description to follow Daniel and the Chaser show. All right, let's get right into this episode. Hope you enjoy. Adaptations. Speaking of George R. R. Martin, we're going to be talking about how he's been criticizing House of the Dragon, and it got me thinking about what adaptations are actually better than their source material. So let's pick one, and then we're going to ask the question out to people on social media, and you guys can answer, and we'll go back to it next week. So Jonathan, let's start with you. What is something that was adapted and the adaptation was better?
Yes, that's a hard question. We've seen a lot of reboots in movies and TV shows, so I thought I would find something in between that. But I can't, for all the reboots that we've seen that I can think of, I couldn't find one that necessarily the original wasn't better or was bad enough in comparison to say the new one was better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna have to go with Dune. The books, between Dune and the movies, the two movies that came out. The first one, though, I know when we talked about it on here, I was slightly disappointed because you didn't hear like their thoughts and stuff like that when they would do that. Benny Jesuit kind of, in the book, you can really get inside their head. Yeah. And it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes where the room slows down. In the movies, they didn't represent that. So in the first one, I was a little disappointed, but the second one, I think, brought it back, brought the standard higher and really kind of brought the story together more.
It finished the story, yeah. That's the problem. Is the first one just does not finish the story at all. It's so blue balls. I remember when we watched it with Squeaks. Squeaks now has read both the first two books, but Daniel and they were just like, "What? What the hell is this?" And like, "Yeah, there's a lot to go." Actually, they stopped at a tough spot.
Very open-ended plot, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Jonathan. I'm gonna go with The Boys. The Boys comic book is very different than the show, and it's even more outlandish and crazy stuff like that. But I think The Boys has taken that crazy story and kind of given it a direction that's not seen in the comic books at all. It's actually, frankly, kind of hard to get through the comics. I've been working on that. I've actually have another thing I want to bring up too, that it's just that the source material is so hard to get through that the adaptation makes it far more consumable. My other thing is The Prestige. I love the movie The Prestige. You do too. The book is a bit of a beast. It's actually because the book is a little bit of that diary thing that they have going on in the movie. So without the other perspective, which is the Christopher Nolan perspective, it's hard to visualize this diary back and forth thing that is so key to the movie and is what the book is. But we want to hear from you guys. What is an adaptation that actually turned out better than the source material? Online already, I'm seeing so much Jurassic Park. We talked about Umbrella Academy before, stuff like that. So I would love to hear your guys' opinion. All right, Jonathan, let's get into some news. We're going to be starting off by talking about Minecraft. We had a new Minecraft trailer. Honestly, out of nowhere. Did not expect this trailer at all. What is your first reactions to that?
I was kind of worried when we heard there's going to be a Minecraft movie because it is so popular with especially young kids, but our generation too. It's so popular that it's easy to just take it and print cash. Like we know they can do it. And I'm still worried that might be the case, but the fact that they have a lot of good actors in it and visually it looks like they put some money into it. Doesn't look very cheap, cheaply made. I'm pretty excited for it. I'm hopeful that I think it's going to be pretty good. Regardless, I think it's going to make them a ton of money. But
that we would both agree on. I didn't care for it. I thought it looked pretty bad. And honestly,
Oh man.
I think Jack Black looks like he didn't give any effort to this. You know, it feels like he just found the blue shirt and put it on. What's the deal with the way that Jason Momoa looks? You notice how he looks pretty interesting?
Yeah, so I know you mentioned that before too, and I think that is a representation of the creativity of the players because he's a skin. He's not Steve or.
That's the best argument I've heard so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some god awful skins where it's like somebody just went in the program and did a crayon and it just scribbled everywhere and it just looks like a bunch of vomit. This is a creative one that's trying to be like maybe some 70s rock star that they like or something, or not 70s, 80s rock star they liked or something like that with the bright pink or trying to look like a friend that has a cool pink jacket and it's a girl, but you selected the, bigger body type or whatever. I don't know. It's somebody being creative. And I think that's what this whole game is all about, is being able to make whatever you want, however you want. And he's trying to represent the everyday player, I think.
That's the best argument for it I've heard so far. That's a good one. What are your thoughts on how they're going to tell the story of Minecraft? Because that's the idea, right? Minecraft doesn't have a story. It's very open-ended. They threw the end dragon is really just a Microsoft thing. This one feels like these guys go through a nether portal, which I do like the nether portal idea. They go through another portal, end up in this blocky world. It almost feels like a Jumanji thing in that Steve's been here the whole time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too, is that aspect of the game is pretty much not built at all. There isn't a story arc. There's certain things you could do within the game, and then the rest of it is open to your creativity. So like D&D is open to your creativity. You write the story as you play. We're going to be watching their campaign. We're going to be watching the story, adventure that they create in the game, but it's not pre-told to us yet. We don't have we know that you can get to the Ender Dragon and certain challenges in the game. For the most part, there's no path that you're supposed to take.
Do you feel like this movie is going to be good for the live action, or do you think they should have stuck to animated?
I don't think animated would have sold as much. I think they're going to do good with the live action. I know it's going to be silly. I think we have to be prepared for that it's going to be, the target audience is probably 7 to 12 years old, and we're going to be along for the ride also. Yeah. But and as fans of Minecraft from its origins, we'll appreciate a lot of it too. Mm-hmm. Well, there's going to be a lot of nostalgia in it, I'm sure, but the kind of humor isn't going to be college humor or adult humor. It's going to be not even teen, probably young teen or younger child humors. Yeah,
I was just comparing it to that Super Mario Brothers movie was so good, and it was all fully animated. If you guys just do that again, then we're set. It feels like they also kind of want to do some of the Sonic. Sonic has been very successful. We're lucky that the video game adaptations have been doing so well lately. But with Sonic, they pulled the video game character out of the video game and put it into our world. This feels like they're trying the opposite of that, putting us into the video game world.
Have we not seen something like that? I'm sure we've seen other movies where people go into a CGI, animated world.
I can't think of one. I mean, like Alice in Wonderland, if you're going with just straight cartoon, like the idea of it, but I
Page Master.
Page Master. Oh God, wow.
You go way back.
Actually, just got that book too recently. I didn't know it was a book, and then I found it. Why is Jack Black in every video game adaptation, Jonathan?
I think just because he's iconic of the genre or something like that. Like he's in the culture and willing and excited, has that huge energy that I'm sure the directors love, that they don't have to sit there and hold his hand. They just say, here's a script, run with it. And I'm sure he gets on stage and puts on a show easily. So I think it's probably a lot of that energy. He's excited to be in this kind of a themed movie.
I like that. So you think that maybe he's just beyond the paycheck, actually just having fun with it and kind of like, hey, you know what? He's gonna embody Steve. He's gonna have fun with that.
Exactly. Just like who was that? Henry Cavill talking about how he likes RPGs and D&D and stuff like that. So if you were to put him in that kind of a role, he's gonna have fun and bring so much more energy to it than if he's playing a character he doesn't like. You get 110% out of somebody when they're doing something they like. So I think that's the best way to cast.
Famously, that's why The Witcher kind of fell apart, was because he kept telling the writers, like, hey, you guys are doing this wrong in the book. Witcher does this, Witcher does that. And they're like, no, the books don't matter. And he's like, bullshit, they don't matter. I gotta love Henry Cavill. I also think there's something about the appeal to him. Like, our generation clearly loves Jack Black because we've watched him most of our lives. He's wacky and goofy enough that he's almost a clown-esque person for the younger generation to attach to as well. I think if you watch him in Jumanji when he's like the girl that's like in the wrong body, like he's just a fun guy to watch, whether or not you know him. So plug and play him anywhere you want to. Really seem to do well.
Yeah,
I love how much he embraced Bowser, and like at his concert you'd see him do the Peaches song afterwards. Yeah, Hey, he's just having fun with it.
Right. And really, I mean, from a business standpoint, as an actor, it's brilliant how he's kind of connecting with the next generation so effectively because
Yeah.
like you're saying, now he can be in all these, young kid movies, and he's gonna build a reputation with them to where they're gonna want to see, even though he's not, a 15-year-old actor like you'd see in a lot of younger movies.
Yeah.
He can get tons of good roles moving forward.
Let's move to another iconic actor, and that's going to be Ian McKellen. He
Mhm.
has said that he is coming back for The Hunt for Golem. It's a new movie coming out in 2026, with the clarification saying, "You all need to hurry up on this because I'm an old man at this point." I do love how he's being very realistic with his age. Is Gandalf coming back? By the way, we also have Andy Serkis who's going to be directing this and returning as Golem. Do you think with Gandalf coming back, it gives this movie so much more clout, or does this still feel like a cash grab?
Oh, absolutely. I think having him in it is major credibility for the movie. I think it's going to bring back the traditional fans, and not look like all these reboots and prequels and sequels that are just printing money.
Yeah.
But hey, if they're going to have Gandalf in it and so much of the original cast, they're going to take their time and do it right. I think it's going to do good.
If they're gonna do a movie, this one's called The Hunt for Gollum, in
Mhm.
the Lord of the Rings world, and they kind of don't have a source material for this, so they're basically just winging it. What kind of story do you want them to tell? Like this one feels like it's gonna be from the dark side, trying to figure out where Gollum is. We do see that he's captured in the Fellowship, and he like tells them the Shire. I'm assuming it's leading up to that. What other kind of stories would we want to see out of Lord of the Rings?
So I'm sure they'll have like a B and C plot going on, but what I'd like to see more of is we saw a very brief clip of, well, a pretty small clip of Golem finding the ring and then the corruption that led to how he is now. But we see that he was a halfling, like right? Wasn't he a hobbit
Yeah,
or
yeah,
similar?
one of that
But
type. Yeah,
yeah,
I think they call him River Folk actually, but yeah.
yeah, okay. So he was just a normal person until he was corrupted by the ring, and now he's just this grotesque monster. He's so different. So to see a little more of that development, and we find him. I think he was in that cave, still searching for the ring, right?
Mhm.
So kind of what led up to that, and then maybe there's more story behind that we didn't see in Lord of the Rings that takes place after uh, he leaves Frodo and Sam. So I think there's a lot they can fill in. Plus, yeah, like I was saying, B and C plots going on in the background, but especially I'd like to see more of his origin, the development that made him what he is.
There's a lot of room in this world to explore some of the other races and different people that we saw in the movies,
Yeah.
like in Rings of Power. If you guys are getting through that, they're expanding on a lot of the human races that you might have seen just for a little bit. Even on the villains side in Lord of the Rings, you're starting to get them more in the series, which is nice to see. We can see the foundation of Mordor. That's something that they could definitely do is kind of expand some of these other like elves for is a great example. Like we get the wood elves through Legolas and his father in The Hobbit. Let's learn more about the elves. Let's see how what they're doing. I just don't know how a movie fully CGI, I mean, like the characters fully CGI, is gonna super do. I don't know if we can trust Andy Serkis to direct the same way Peter Jackson does, which is very grand. These beautiful, wonderful shots of New Zealand.
I don't think it will be though. Do you
Yeah,
you think it's gonna be like that much like Lord of the Rings? That's what
I would
they're
assume
going
that's
for?
my thing, right? Is I'm assuming that, so that's why I'm
Yeah.
having a hard time connecting the two.
It being wrapped around him, I could see it being a lot more like darker,
Hmm.
right? Like not this big grandiose scenes, but following this peasant pretty much who gets corrupted by evil and is murdering to try to protect this power that he got and stuff like that, and living in a cave and fighting the spider, hiding from that spider and stuff. Like a lot of kind of I mean, it'd be all about corruption and not so much about the light and power of good and things like that Gandalf stands for. So, I mean, I'm sure there will be a balance to it. Gandalf being in it would be, the light side of the story, but I don't think it's going to be at the same scale as we've seen with Lord of the Rings. This big journey across the Middle Earth and everything.
I would think a good B plot, and maybe actually something that could be somebody hunting for Gollum, is to
Mhm.
explore the Ranger Strider, which we all know is Aragorn. Seeing him as a ranger, somebody who's kind of a loner and employed by local townsfolk here and there, that could be a really
Mhm.
good way to introduce his character. Although at this point, also like age is a factor, so the Hugh Jackman
Yeah.
can't be Wolverine forever kind of thing.
And they could bring in, I don't know if there's any others in the book that aren't, there's probably plenty of people in the book that aren't brought into the screen, but they could bring in other characters that we're hunting for them, that we're trying and striving, and they die before we get to the timeline of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
like, we've seen that in plenty of other prequel movies.
Are you watching Rings of Power right now?
I haven't. I think I watched like 2 episodes from the first season. But I do want to binge it at some point, but I haven't been watching it lately.
We're gonna give a review when it's fully over, season 2. But one of the things I'm running across everybody's watching it, and I'm letting them build up a little bit because I just watched season 1 again. So I'm like, okay, I need a little bit of a break. Is that it's too much of a slog to get through. That, you know, the Lord of the Rings grand story that's slow pacing, great for a movie, tough for a show. So I'm wondering if that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, and that's why I think it might be better to binge it, because like the names that you have to remember and just the depth of these stories it's great, but it's something you can't watch it and then a week later, 2 weeks later, watch a little more of it. It's better to get it all out at once so you can. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a lot to watch too. I'm sure it's a long show, but
I wonder why it's seeming like House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones does what Lord of the Rings does, but better for TV. Can you think of what's different about those two that makes that possible?
Yeah, pacing. I think they do a pretty good job. I mean, we notice it when an episode of House of the Dragons is a little bit slow. And it's like, well, that built the characters out so much, though.
We needed that between these 2 bigger episodes or something like that.
Yeah. And after that, a dragon's going to die. We need another spike of adrenaline, and then it's going to slow back down a little bit and get into kind of somebody sneaking around. And then, that guy got stabbed in the back, or that child got their head cut off. You know, it's going to, they do a good job with pacing, I think, is the main part.
And I think the dialogue is a lot more interesting in House of the Dragon. Like in Rings of Power, I feel like if you're not an elf, it's very basic, very like, we have to hide in the cave, and that's just it. Meanwhile, like the elves are talking in a way that's so highfalutin that it's kind of hard to be relatable in any way. I've said it many times. A conversation between Cersei and Tyrion in a room drinking some wine can be the most captivating thing on screen just because it's 2 wordsmith dueling. That, I think, House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones are masterful at.
It could be, a simple wording, but you understand they don't actually mean that, and what they're covering up. And it's just layers of deception that you can see that the other characters can't. It makes it such a better scene. And
I cannot imagine a character from Rings of Power having layers like that. Not a single one of them has any layers like that. I know that there's the reveal of who Sauron is, and I won't do it in case anybody hasn't watched that part yet. But even then, you're like, oh, okay. I mean, I kind of get it, But it wasn't like I could rewatch this. I definitely caught things that were like, yeah, that's clearly Sauron. If you were to rewatch it, you wouldn't be like, oh, the way he said this only works if he's Sauron. But you could definitely see that happening in Game of Thrones. Speaking of Game of Thrones, we're going to go back to that adaptation thing, and we're going to be going into spoilers for House of the Dragon season 2, of course, but also the future of House of the Dragon seasons 3 and 4, just because we're going to have to talk about some of the story plots here. But we're going to be talking about George R. R. Martin and his recent criticisms for House of the Dragon. Did you have a chance to catch anything from him and what he's been saying about this?
I saw like a clip of an interview with him. As far as I understood, it was something like, in the show, they didn't introduce certain characters, and that down the line, that's going to kind of make it hard for them. They're going to have to rewrite some stuff or try to find a way to shoehorn in some other stories. It won't have the natural development it would have if they started with this, child and his development. But, there's certain things like that adapting from a book to TV, you kind of have to do. You can't put line for line what's in the book in there, which won't fit. So, yeah, but I heard that he posted these disagreements or whatever, this post, and then an hour or 2 later had to hurry up and took it down.
As if the internet forgets.
Yeah, exactly. You already got 1,000, people's comments in by then.
The person he's talking about is Prince Maelor from the books. To give people context, if you just watched the show, Helena, which is the daughter of Alicent that can kind of see the future. She can't see the future. She just can't control it. She has 3 children, not 2. In the show, she has 2. Jaehaerys and Jaehaera are the 2 that she has in the show, and then she has a 3rd one called Maelor. And Maelor is a young boy. Now, the big disagreement that George R. R. Martin has put forward, and he says that there are many more that he disagrees about, but these are the ones right now, and this one is really impactful. And I'll just start right now saying I disagree with George R. R. Martin, and I'll give a reason why. In the book, what happens is Blood and Cheese, these assassins, enter her room. They capture her, and they tell her, choose which one of the sons you want to die. And she, knowing that, Jaehaerys is actually the heir to the king Maelor is just a young boy. He'll be always the younger brother. She chooses, go ahead and kill Maelor. It's heartbreaking for Helena to do that, to have to choose one of her children to die at all, but she does. And they go up to Maelor and they tell Maelor, who's a young boy, it says, your mother wanted you to die, and then kill Jaehaerys anyways. It's, brutal moment in the book. It is a very well thought of story. In the show, what they did for changing it is there is no Maelor. So they go in and ask which one is the boy because of twins. They fight, she picks the boy, yada, 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 takes the girl, Jaehaerys, and then runs off to her mom's room, Alicent's room. And essentially that's the same thing that happens, right? They kill Jaehaerys, and there goes the heir to the king, which is exactly what happens in the book too. As somebody who didn't read the book, Jonathan, I want to know, what do you feel like the emotional difference is between those two scenes?
Wow, it's huge. That's a huge difference in the level of like torment it's gonna cause within the mother, having to not only choose between your kids, which she kind of did in the show with having to say which one's the boy or girl, because I mean they could have checked honestly, but either way they're gonna take the word for it. They
probably would have too in that situation actually.
Yeah,
just to be safe.
Yeah, or they. I'm surprised they didn't just kill both, and her while they're at it, because they don't want witnesses or they're gonna get hung in the streets. But yeah, to be able to first be forced to choose one of your children, not which one, do you want to save, which one's going to die. That's the hardest, wording in it too. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that they did that little twist is like, well, either way, the heir's going to die and your other son's going to know that you didn't care enough about him, that he's, you wanted him dead too. It's just, it bakes another layer in that cake of, her twisted mind and where she's at in a character that we want to see developed. But like we've mentioned before in the show, they're really not developing her character a whole lot, right? I mean, we see that she's a green seer, but there's a lot more that can be done with that character.
I would argue that they're doing more development for her in the show than they are in the book, though.
Oh, okay.
So Fire and Blood, that the book that House of the Dragon is based off of, is a textbook. It's not a storybook in any way. So the idea is that it's a maester recounting another maester and the fool at court their stories of what happened. And so it's very much he said, she said in a way, but also just kind of recounting the events. So the event that I just explained to you happened in a paragraph. What normally would be a chapter and was the finale to that episode 2, was actually just a chapter in a history book. So it doesn't read like it's got the dramatic flair to it. The reader has to put that in. And if you think of the showrunners for House of the Dragon, they have to put that in too. You know what I'm saying? So it's up for interpretation in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that we kind of gloss over in the story that could be expanded on and made into more dramatic scenes, but it's up to the person who's adapting it to identify those and where can we, with the technology we have and everything, where can we make this really impactful? That's a perfect example, relating that to the audience, like, a mother having to choose between her children or watching one of her children die. Like that's a huge thing for parents and just, people in general. So, seeing a dragon collapse out of the sky, that's pretty cool.
It's awesome, but yeah.
Yeah. But the emotions that are behind child's death is so big to just kind of gloss over it in an episode and not make it the finale or not make it a big scene on screen. It's that would be a waste of potential. So I think that was a good choice.
And book readers are excited for this moment, not excited for this moment. We're anticipating this moment because it is kind of the strike back from Team Black. It's basically the war has begun because Luke had died earlier from Vhagar. So now let's expand into what the ramifications are of that moment. So George R. R. Martin, his biggest complaint is that not only did they get rid of Maelor, which he felt like was not necessary, and he's really big about whether it being necessary or not necessary. And I'll go over why it was necessary. But his big thing is, and here comes the spoilers, in the next part of the story, eventually, Maelor dies well. He's ripped apart, actually. It's really brutal. Helena breaks finally, throws herself from the castle and kills herself. A terrible, sad scene, but that's essentially all that happens. And he feels like, and there are a couple other things too. There's this bridge battle, stuff like that. There are a few other things that are shared from them. That's kind of the key, is Helena's motivation to kill herself comes from her son's death. And now George is saying, that's no longer there. Why would Helena kill herself? Now, personally, again, I feel like the show is developing far better. We're looking at a character who is in an abusive relationship with Aegon, who's being used by her mom, even when Alicent feels bad for her, she's still using her, parading around her in the streets of King's Landing. In a relationship she doesn't want to be in. We see that Aemon is handsy. He's always been kind of attracted to his sister, and will clearly just get worse. The person who can see the future and see how it's going to go has zero agency in this family.
Yeah.
That's the person who's going to kill herself. Not the person who's like, my son died, and up to this point I really didn't have any opinions, and so she dies. But now the person who, like, it sounds like they're going to try to force her to go on Dreamfire in, the next season. She does not do dragon riding, not because she can't, because she doesn't want to. It sounds like they're going to try to force her to do it. So I think that the character that the show is developing has a lot more agency, and therefore when she does take her own life, it's going to be way more impactful than it was in the book. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, there's so many ways they could write in another triggering event for her to take her life. But like you're saying, she's a green seer. She can see glimpses of the future. It only takes her seeing a scene that she doesn't want to be involved in. If it's like, I will mount dragon back, but I will kill my siblings before I die or something like that. Then it's like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to change my prophecy. I'm going to kill myself now to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or any number of things, not wanting to see her other child die, her daughter die. She kills somebody or tries to kill the king. She gets stopped, kills a king's guard. And then she decides, okay, now I have to go jump out the window because they're just going to torture me at this point or something. They can write in a million different situations.
And that's one of the big benefits of the show, right? Is that it gives us the things that we can't see in a history book told by two other people, is the people that weren't in the room. And in the books, it's hinted that she might have dragon dreams, but it's not something you prove. That's magic. And in the show, we literally are seeing her dragon dreams. And I like the idea that you said there, where maybe she sees that, okay, I do actually have to get on Dreamfire, and I burn down a village, and I don't want to be that person. I see how monstrous my brothers are and my family. And so, she decides to take her own life instead of causing others, which would be her changing a dragon dream, which is, I don't think, something they ever do. That would have more impact too.
Yeah.
Makes Helena a far better character all around.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
So now looking at George R. R. Martin, and he makes this big post on his blog, which is a very good blog, by the way, guys. I would subscribe to it if you can. But in it, he's kind of getting into the fray. He's throwing the showrunner under Ryan Condal. He's throwing him under the bus, saying that Ryan did this. And it feels very petty. It's important to note that George R. R. Martin didn't just sell his rights to this and like walked away. No, he's a producer on the show. So he's talking shit about a coworker, essentially. Somebody who could have pulled aside, had a coffee with, and said, hey, I really don't like this change.
And he probably has, right? I mean, he's probably voiced his opinions, and they just like, hey, we have to move forward. But
he was told about the change that had to happen. And the reason that they said they had to happen was because, like, look, the show's very expensive. The other thing to remember is that Warner Brothers is under new management from Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, they had the budget that was infinite. And it was all about, like, the arts. This new leadership is all about making money. So they're like, look, you have to scale back on the budget on this thing. So you can either hire one less kid or not have that dragon fight. I'm sorry, but that kid cannot be hired.
Especially that kid's not going to be king someday. He's going to get killed off in another season or whatever. Like, let's just, we'll rewrite that part.
Yeah.
We'll make it a little simpler.
You'll notice that on the show, they're not making a big deal out of Rhaena's two other kids, which are a far bigger deal than any kids she's had so far. But they're just like, look, they're not a big deal yet, so let's save money and not show them very often,
Exactly. With a stuffed animal sitting in the corner, that's one of them.
Yeah. Dragons are not cheap, folks. I mean, they're cheaper than they were, but they're not cheap. But we're running into that. And I think that, and even as a fan of the books too, I think there's this vibe that I've always gotten that, like, first off, George R. R. Martin is the classic shut up and write because he's not finished the Game of Thrones books. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But also, he kind of got Fire and Blood out at a time when we were waiting for the next Game of Thrones books, and he has a co-writer on it. So, and the way it's written feels very much like, hey, in case HBO needs to make more shows, here's a bunch of lore. And so it goes very fast. And so it feels kind of like you're complaining about something that we all kind of feel like you put out there just so HBO has something to bounce off of. The next 3 spinoffs are all being pulled from that book. Well, one is not, but it's going to be mentioned in the book. It is mentioned in the book. So it's like, come on, George, slow down. You're so freaking rich right now. Just do your job.
He's been writing probably most of his life, and he's really good at it. Very creative. He can envision this whole world that he's made. To do that by yourself for so long, it is the way that you do it. Is like if you paint big murals and you paint them by yourself for your entire life, you can't have somebody step in and, oh, I'll do the mountains while you do the clouds. So this is a collaboration at this point with him. He's working with the studios to like, well, and try to make it match what he's written, and he's continuing to write. So I can imagine how hard that has to be for him to kind of change his tactics, I guess, or change how he's writing and producing the show. You know, these guys are pushing back and all these little tweaks and stuff that, you know, yeah, you're probably going to see some speed bumps in the shows and whatnot. That's not me. That's these other guys, because they're tweaking my vision here and there. I think it's a little bit of ego, probably. It's hard to go from doing something solo for so long. It's your independent work. Like you've done so much, you know, podcast work. If somebody else comes in and says, oh, I'll edit these episodes from now on, and you'd probably say, take it, thank God. But you know, their flavor, their style, their art will be mixed in with it, and it's just not going to be your original creation anymore. So I imagine that's probably hard, but at the same time, he has to understand that that's what he agreed to, is a collaboration.
And yeah, the adaptation, it is better in many ways, in a lot of other ways, right? Where they cut things down that don't necessarily need to be in here. A great example is Corlys Valerian is clearly the father of Alan and Adam, but in the books, it's rumored that he is, and that Rhaenyra's first husband is actually Laenor is actually the dad. It's not sure which one's the dad. Well, because they changed the timeline so much, they had to kind of like crunch the time a little bit. Yeah. Laenor's not old enough to have kids that age, obviously. So it doesn't make sense that they would be his kids. And that's just a ramification of the show being that way, that you have to adjust. In closing on this, I really hope George R. R. Martin, he deleted his post and I'm not entirely sure why, but I hope that he understands that, yes, this is a collaborative effort, and you're not a fan like us who get to be nitpicky about things. You're a producer on the show. You're an owner of this IP. You getting down on the muck with us belittles the work that you've done, and you need to stay above the fray, and you need to be kind of this like grounding voice that if George R. R. Martin came out and said, if everybody was complaining about this Helena thing and Maelor, Prince Maelor, if he came out and said like, hey guys, it's just the show. If you want something different, read the books. You know how much you'd shut down the fan base from bickering?
Oh yeah. So
that's
much.
who you need to be, you know, not in there with us. All right, guys, we would love to hear your opinion on that. That's why we're talking about adaptations at the beginning of the episode, is because it got my wheels turning on like other adaptations that were improved. We're going to learn more about this as the time goes on, I'm sure. Next up, we're going to be talking about California Senate just passed a brand new law. It's called AB 1836. We're still waiting for Gavin Newsom to sign it. But what this law does is you have to get consent from a deceased performer's estate before using an AI replica of them. So I want to give a couple examples of when this has happened in the past. Not necessarily always a dead person, but so like Carrie Fisher in the Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker from 2019. We also had Carrie Fisher in Rogue One, and we had Peter Cushing in Rogue One. That's Moff Tarkin from the first Star Wars movie. Paul Walker in Furious 7. He passed away before they finished Furious 7, and that little like send-off, whatever. They used his brother as a stand-in, but they CGI'd over his face. And then Oliver Reed passed away before the finishing up of Gladiator back in 2000, and they used CGI to kind of fix that. Let's start off with a broader take on this. What are your thoughts on using AI, using CGI to bring a dead actor back into a movie?
Yeah, I think it's really complicated. It's a very touchy subject, because there's going to be perspectives all over the spectrum. But I think the biggest thing is it's up to the person themselves. Before they pass, you need to write a very clear explanation of what you're okay with, what you're not okay with. Somebody needs to make the money. It can't be free for studios to use my face for a million years or indefinitely. It's still got to cost them something, and it should go to, you know, the families, or if they choose a certain organization or something like that, whatever. It has to be clear like what they're agreeing to. If I don't like horror movies, I need to state in there, I can only play this character or this type of movie or something like that. I don't want my face to be used to scare little children and create, you know, nightmares for people or something. I can imagine some people not wanting to see their family member being exploited in this way, or used after their death, because that's their soul. Like they would think like they're not here anymore. Anything else recreating them is not them. It's
not delivering the choices that they might have made in that situation that breaks the character that they are.
and it's like stealing their character, stealing who they are, trying to recreate a false representation of it. But at the same time, I could imagine people who would love the idea of, after I pass, I can, Mr. Rogers, if he was able to say, after I pass, I want to continue to share joy and good messages with children. Can you continue my show with AI? I mean, what a great message to keep passing along. You know, it's always a happy, friendly, encouraging story selling and stuff like that. So I could see certain people who would want, or they made such a great character. They're like, oh man, I love this character. I want him to carry on after I'm dead. You have the rights to use my likeness to keep making that happen as effectively as you can. I imagine there's a lot of people on both sides of that, and it's a very difficult thing to talk about.
You know, Mr. Rogers is a good example, because if they were to continue a Mr. Rogers show, first off, they would have to make sure it follows his vibe, which was so wholesome that it's almost hard to do that in a money-making idea. Like, if we're going to make Mr. Rogers shows for the sake of just being a good person, easy. But if we're going to do it to make money, it might be like, Bob, this episode's brought to you by Pepsi, you know, something like that.
Exactly.
So the idea that they need the consent from the estate is a good way of making sure that happens. For most part, the estates follow through with the deceased person's mentality on things. I mean, like, famously, Bob Ross's family is not that way. They're very greedy, honestly. Yeah. And it's a shame, because Bob Ross does not seem like that kind of person at all. He's just a happy painter. There's a way of controlling what the output would look like. There's also that legacy you're talking about, right? Making sure that the legacy keeps going on. That reminds me so much of James Earl Jones. He sold the rights to his voice already for Darth Vader. So when you watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and the Darth Vader scene at the end there, which is actually his voice mixed with Anakin's voice because of what happens in that scene, that's a fully AI voice. And we didn't know that until afterward they revealed that. And you can't tell the difference. I'm telling you guys, it is amazing. It does feel creepy though, right? That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah. And as we start letting the technology more and more into the industry, we have to really make sure we have, guardrails in place to protect the actors and ourselves as viewers too. But I mean, it can easily get to the point that it's so accessible and so convenient that we kind of take down some of our guard, take down some of the restrictions on it, and the whole industry is affected, is all taken over by AI.
Here's a statement from SAG-AFTRA, the union that protects actors. AB 1836 is another win in our ongoing strategy of enhancing performer protections. The passing of this bill alongside AB 2602 earlier this week builds on our mosaic of protections in laws and contracts. So 2602 is essentially the same thing, but for living actors. SAG-AFTRA is like, this is a good chance for us to not have our actors replaced by AI someday. If it's connecting all of those, like a hard drive of actors that you might have to a person that you still need to pay. And if you're going to pay someone, you might as well get a real performance. Then it's a good way to protect everybody, because I think that's the only thing that's going to stop production companies from just replacing everybody with AI is the fact that everybody still has to get paid. I can still see them like completely making a CGI person or an AI person. You could do the visuals AI and you could do the voice AI. Then yeah, it's hard, but at least it's something.
Where there's money to be made, people will find a way, unfortunately. Yes. And there's going to be ways to step around the union, not just like cheating the union on this point or that point. Completely, we don't need you. We won't work with you. We don't need the studio. We can be a 14-year-old kid in his bedroom with his computer, make a full-length movie, and just publish it to YouTube. And if it's comparable with the new Power Ranger movie that just came out or something like that, people will watch it. Why not? Maybe not as many. And it's taking the time away from them going to the theaters, and it would just start affecting the sales of regular movies. And then all crap, now studios can't afford to make the high quality movies anymore. So we're going to cut corners and put out a bunch of these cheap ones to see if we can recoup our losses. And I'm afraid that it's going to pretty quickly snowball and kind of ruin the movie industry.
There's a new AI out. I can't remember what company does it. I want to say it's New York Times. No, what it is I think it's an AI company working with other news stories. What it is it'll take a news article and turn it into a podcast. And I'm not saying read the news article. It'll actually have two hosts talking about the article as if it was an actual podcast episode. And when I heard that, I was the whole time we're doing this podcasting thing, I'm like, AI is going to replace us someday because they'll just read the script that I'm writing and then they can use AI to write the script. And then when I heard a clip of this, I'm like, son of a bitch, they're here.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. It's like, it's not this distant future anymore. It's today or tomorrow, or it's already there, but it's not profitable enough for anyone to be using it yet. But as soon as they flip the switch, so much that it can do. And it's so, it can do great things, but it can also be very dangerous to the established systems that we have. We need a team of people, smarter than us, to make sure this doesn't kind of ruin our country.
It is scary, but it is, hey, it's out there and we have to be ready for it. Hopefully you guys like our witty takes. Let's do a couple rapid fire news stories and then we're going to get into our review for Beetlejuice. Nice. The Twilight series is now being animated for Netflix because of course Netflix does animation. It's going to be, well, I will say that this is cool because it's being told through Edward's perspective. So at least we're getting a little bit of a change of that. Would you be interested in watching that at all?
Yeah, that sounds good. I don't know. Because the original Twilight movies were all from the girl's perspective. Bella, yeah. Which was kind of weird because she's like, I don't know. It was kind of weird. I did watch them all. I did like him back then, but yeah, imagine how would his perspective be different because he's almost timeless. He's right. He's in the hundreds of years old. Having seen so many, but then there's like some kind of pheromone attraction to her. So it would still have that kind of romance and passion behind it, but
it's odd to make that animated then, right? Like, how are you going to show that passion through animation?
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure we've seen it in other stuff at some point, some kind of animated romance, but
and Netflix's animation, as much as I talk shit, is actually very good.
Yeah.
Over at DC, they announced finally we have an official release date for Creature Commandos. Again, another animated, but it's also the start of the DCU. It'll be out on December 5th. So Creature Commandos is going to be sort of a Suicide Squad-esque group of horror villains that do things, and it's going to have Ric Flair Sr. as their leader. It looks fun. Amanda Waller's going to be there. I'm all in for that too.
Nice.
Alison Brie has been cast as Evelyn for the live-action Masters of the Universe movie. This thing's getting closer and closer as it's adding to the cast. And every time I post one of the new castings, the reaction has always been positive. People are really excited for this. So I think it's going to be cool. It's coming out June 5th, 2026. We have a long time to wait, but at least the casting so far has been spot on. All right, let's get to Beetlejuice. Jonathan, why don't you just kick us off with this review?
So I thought this was... Should we go down some of the plot or just how we...
Let's keep it spoiler-free. So,
okay. Overall, I thought this was a great movie. I think if you liked the original movies, you're going to like this. Though, that being said, as I think about, the original movie, there's probably a lot of people... I mean, there's probably a lot of young people now that just haven't seen it. And even when you think back to that time when we were young and imaginative and creative, I think that's what really sold the movie to us. Is it's so kind of zany and quirky and funny, but it definitely wouldn't fit everybody's tastes. I'm surprised it's as popular as it is because it doesn't seem like a mainstream TV movie movie. It doesn't seem like it would have made it to theaters, being that it's kind of so quirky and unique. Watching this one, it's like, oh, they did a great job kind of replicating the vibes, building on them, kind of expanding it a little bit. It doesn't have the major depth of a story like we're talking about Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and stuff. All, yeah. No depth, and that's fine because you're there just for a fun ride. And I think they did a perfect job at that. They did a lot. You'd mentioned how much practical effects they used. We didn't recognize hardly any CGI. A couple of small twists that I didn't see right away that kind of made it fun. But yeah, in the end, all the actors were phenomenal. They used multiple kind of art styles, like we saw the claymation scenes and stuff like that.
That was neat to see claymation again. It's been a long time since I've seen that fired up.
Yeah, so I think all around they did a great job, not just making a good movie, but making it so much the same vibes and everything of the original movie.
It's hard to capture that, right? Because in the 80s, there were some kind of just zany movies they did. It also kind of reminded me when I'm watching this, the two things I thought of outside of just straight up Beetlejuice was the Beetlejuice cartoon, when him and Lydia worked together a lot. And it reminded me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where it was It's a live action cartoon essentially is what we're watching, and that's a lot of the Beetlejuice feelings. Yeah, it was good, and I was kind of like, I wonder how modern audiences are going to take this. And then I was also wondering, how did the audience back then take this? Were there Tim Burton fans? And it feels like Tim Burton was back to his ways with this movie. Yes. Looks like he was having fun, taking chances. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of, I thought they handled the dad really well, because the dad, he's a living actor. He's still alive. But he got into some legal troubles. We won't go into the details. So he's not going to be allowed to be on TV anymore, or movies anymore. But they did a good job of kind of getting around that, right? The whole crux of the show, or the movie, which you guys saw in the trailer, is his death. And that's what brings the family back together. A couple of the standouts performance-wise, Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, I thought for sure his age was going to be like noticeable. It really wasn't. And I was very surprised by that.
I mean, I think it helps him. Obviously, he doesn't age so much because the characters wears so much makeup. Yeah. And he's already like an undead or dead, demon or whatever. So it's a pretty convenient disguise, costume he has to wear. That kind of, you could be any age and look more or less the same with
and
it.
He slipped right back into it too, amazingly.
Yeah.
He just fell right back into
that voice and everything is just so funny.
And then Catherine Hahn, which in the first movie was relegated to just kind of a villain of the movie, really. She's elevated in this, and now I'm like, I want so much more. And Schitt's Creek really launched her career all over again. Schitt's Creek is such a freaking fantastic show. She's kind of got a little bit of Moira in her in this one, so that's good. But I'm glad they elevated her character. It was well deserved. We have Jenna Ortega. What do you think about Jenna Ortega? Wednesday Adam.
I think she did great. I love that. I mean, first, that was perfect casting to put her in as Lydia's daughter.
It's a no-brainer casting, right?
Yeah, that was just phenomenal. And it's like, she's so good at such a young age. Like, what was I doing? I'm sure she's probably, I don't know, 19 or something like that now. But at her age, I can't imagine me doing anything productive. But she's such a great actor. And it's like, I just want to see more stuff with her. If they did like a spinoff series where it's just now, Beetlejuice is kind of out of the picture, but now her and her mom are doing what they do in the living world. Like, that would be kind of fun. Or I don't know. I want to see more stuff with her in it. She's really good right now.
They did a great job in this one. They did a lot of it in the first one too, but this one really expanded it. The dead world, and I could see a spinoff where she's like, drawing that art, the doorways, and visiting the dead world a lot to help out people and stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be so expensive, but it's almost all practical effects, so probably not so bad. Yeah. You make the weird costumes and things like that, the super, and just reuse 80% of them. You add new characters from time to time. Like I don't want to go into specific. Don't want to go into spoilers, no spoilers, but that'd be so cool. A spinoff series where, maybe there's the dead are crossing over into her world or whatever, so she's got to work back and forth with that detective, or a
Willem
different
Dafoe,
Willem Dafoe, or maybe a different detective because he's probably going to get tired of playing the character too much, but. That'd be, or like an agency. They'd be like,
she could work for that bureaucracy, like the DMV. Her dad is not a very expensive actor. Use the dad. No spoilers. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but that'd be so cool. If she works for them. Maybe she's a detective and she goes back and forth between the two worlds. Though now that I'm talking about that, she's probably too expensive of an actress to make a series.
She does Wednesday.
Well, I guess. Yeah. They should do that. We need to write the right people. We'll start on some scripts.
One of the things I'm really excited about is Wednesday season 2, because they've already said, look, guys, we're going to calm down on the romance. We're going to bring it back to horror. And I was like, okay, that'll be cool. But then after this, I'm like, yes, if this is Tim Burton finally doing Tim Burton things again, because Wednesday season 1 did not feel very Tim Burton-y. This definitely did.
Some elements, but
let's kind of get into this vibe where we're like, hey, let's just do, and to the practical effects thing too. Like, he still does a lot of practical effects, but you're saying there's no CGI. There's actually quite a bit of CGI, but it's used to enhance practical effects, which is what it should be used for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's seamless. It's perfect. Yeah. Like that. Like, there's a final scene. I won't give any blah blah blah. But some people are like frozen still. Those are all CGI there, and you don't really think about it because everything else around it is practical effects. And then one character. Go ahead.
We saw Willem Dafoe at one point frozen, right? And I don't think that spoils too much.
No.
And when I saw him, I was like, is he just staying still? Or is that like it almost looked like a wax figure?
That's a wax figure, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, that it's just too.
The shine was a little off. Yeah.
Yeah. So his character is just so freaking great. I think that's what they did best, was making such fun and interesting characters and these costume designs. It was just phenomenal.
Everybody had fun. Now, this movie's not all sunshines and roses. I do feel like it set up a lot of plot that it didn't finish. It felt like there hardly was really a plot, right? It felt like a series of events that just happened from one point to another. This could have easily been broken down to like 4 episodes of a TV show. And that's a weak point to me. I had a lot of fun watching it, but it was because I was in the world of Beetlejuice with these actors, not because I was enjoying the story necessarily. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And that's, and I think from the original movie too, that we weren't really expecting, at least I wasn't expecting a very elaborate or deep story. You know, there's just not much there, but you know, seeing that afterlife or whatever, that world again, you know, the art that they did within that and the characters, I think that was the fun that I was looking for anyway.
Yeah.
And there's more in the living world that I don't think we saw much in the original movie. And most of it was just kind of in that townhouse, in that farmhouse. So yeah, like we were saying earlier, I don't think that the plot needed to be, or the story needed to be so deep or so big. That being said, if we went into making a series, I would want it to be a little more cohesive, a continuing story that makes sense, kind of build these characters and you know, create a formula, I guess, that would make sense with them going on.
There's one character I think that was fully wasted. They did such a good job introducing her, and then they just fully wasted it at the end. And I was like, that's missed opportunity. I think they could have expanded on that character. Yeah.
Yeah. It was well built and developed, but then even mid story, that character
just dropped off.
It was just kind of, you could smell the food's been baked, but you're not going to taste it.
No. It's an interesting problem that they have too, because it's kind of like, to relate this to Batman, the Batman learning about Joker is always going to be a good story. But then you have to also create stories where Batman and Joker are well aware of each other. And there are times where Batman has run-ins with Joker, or he's trying to take down Riddler, and Joker has the answer to how to take down Riddler. You know, so that's the phase we're in now. We're not in that first phase where it's real easy to tell the story of the introduction of Joker. Now we're like, Joker exists. He's got a middle management job in hell or the demon world or whatever. So, you know, it's a different story you have to capture somehow on screen. And I think they did a fair enough job with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was good.
I'm giving it, my grade for this is a solid 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it a lot though, but you have to be honest with like that story and stuff. Like there were elements that were not great. I think some of the other, I think Winona Ryder's acting was unfortunately very flat.
Really?
Honestly, I don't think her character felt like the character from the original movie at all. Like that could have been a whole different character, really.
Well, I would argue it's her character from the original movie aged 20 or more years. Like she's slowed down. She's kind of sold out, become this, you know,
sold out's a big
TV
word for
star.
It.
Yeah. So it's just like and she's dating this guy that she's really not interested in, but he's nearby and you know, he'll sit with her on the couch kind of thing. So I think she did a good job playing the character as it was most likely written, but it definitely didn't feel like the young, excited, you know, not even excited, but you know, her younger self.
Her younger self is such an interesting, unique character. Jenna is close to capturing it, but it's not quite the same. So yeah, that was kind of a disappointment for me. It's just because as somebody who grew up on that movie, as long as, you know, others, it was like, oh, she's so cool. And here is like, oh man, you sold out. That sucks.
Yeah. I think her younger self was more curious and like, in wonder of this world she doesn't know. And now she's just kind of like, whatever, been there, done that, kind of fed up with it.
Yeah.
But I'd give this movie, I think, I was going to say 8.5. Yeah, I'll say 8.5. I think it was really good.
Yeah.
Being that I've watched the original, you know, when I was young and imaginative and, you know, really enjoyed it. Anybody else coming in off the streets has never seen the original Beetlejuice is probably not going to like it. Honestly, they'd probably rate it a 5 or lower. Or it may be a young person watching it now that's very creative or an imaginative would possibly like it, but it's definitely not going to be for everybody. So if you liked the original, I think you'll really like this one too.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun to watch, no matter what the score is. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. All
right, let's move over to our interview with Daniel Romer, the showrunner, director, and writer for the series Chase, available on Amazon Prime. Today I'm joined by Daniel Romer, director, writer, creator of Chaser. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's a Friday night, so that's always a good thing.
Yes, it is. Can you tell everybody at home what Chaser is all about?
Yeah, so Chaser is kind of a fantastical story, and it's about a video editor who discovers this mysterious power that enables him to go back and re-edit the last day.
Hmm.
So, in doing that, he's basically trying to get with this girl, and keeps failing, and he goes back to try to re-edit it. But what happens is all this ripple effect and the world starts going to haywire.
Yeah. It feels like there is almost a Morpheus in the room, right? Somebody who's kind of directing him on the outside. Is this going for the horror vibe or that sci-fi vibe? A little bit of both.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money as far as both. You never really set out to go for a vibe, at least I don't, but somehow it happens. You end up as a director, or you end up making thousands of decisions over the course of the entire shoot or in the writing all the way through post, and then all those kind of lead to a style.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end sometimes they sort of tack on like the genre, so it's like, okay, whatever you want to call it, but that's this. Yeah.
So it's looks so thrilling and exciting to watch. I was getting like a 24 sci-fi vibe, which is really cool. What got you to this idea? It's a very unique idea. The idea of making a film editor your protagonist, something that I think was a little bit of a hidden profession almost, but nowadays with social media and all the videos and stuff like that, I think more people are learning about editing. Why did you want to make that your protagonist?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's an easy thing to write for me because I relate to it. I spent many years working as an editor, to pay rent and to, kind of support directing, and I know that world very well. And then even the very first films I ever made kind of had to do with manipulating reality and rewinding things and slow-moing things. And so it just kind of naturally happened in that way.
Do you think that ability to rewind and slow mo and stuff like that, is that sort of the unsung ability that an editor generally has? I know a lot of people watch a movie don't think about the editor, but really they're the ones with the most time on the movie. Is that something that you felt like, they need to share this with the world?
Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of times editors tend to be solitary, like
Yeah.
they're in a room alone. I think writing can be that way too, especially if you're not co-writing. You people go up to like a cabin in the woods and write a novel or work on their screenplay. I think that's the kind of life that a lot of editors have. I personally don't like that.
Yeah.
I feel I need to go out and get interaction, and that's why I enjoy directing. But as an editor too, it's I guess it's the other side of the coin.
Yeah. It feels like it's a bit brutal. You always imagine it's for some reason a dark room. It's like they got stashed away in the back of the lot, and they're working on Avengers for the next 6 months.
Yeah,
it's a long process.
sometimes it's nice to have like a pet in the room, like you got a cat. My favorite is I had a cat that would always jump on my lap, and cats, they don't care about what you're doing. They don't have any notes, and that's good. And then, or even better as a person, if you got a person hanging out and then maybe they're half asleep, or like every once in a while they look up, and then it makes you less obsessive, I guess. And you're just like, oh, okay, reality is here somewhere.
That person who feels like they're so deep into their work and disjointed from maybe a normal social life, do you think that's what makes for a good let's see, hopeless romantic in this case?
Yeah, I think there's something that editors have. They have to be in tune with very minute things, and they have to be a very sensitive person to make performances cut together. And it's weird because I was watching Walter Murch. He has a book out, multiple books, and lots of video clips. And he was talking about just just the way people blink and their tone of voice and the countenance and all these things. They feed into the final edit and the way you design the edit. And it's like insane the amount of detail. And the editor, by the end of the film, they know more about the actor. Like they know like, you know, how far the eyes are apart from the actor, and like, well, every time they stumble their words, and which, you know, things they have trouble with, you know, maybe internally and in real life. And so a lot of times they know more about the actor than the actor even knows about themselves.
Yeah. And with all those takes too, it's really up to the editor to kind of flush out what the character's trying to portray. If they seem to pick up the takes where they have a little bit more of an aggressive tone, something like that, you could change the entire character in a story based off of whatever you did at the final touches of the movie. So it's a lot more power than maybe even the actor themselves know that they have, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also a lot of different types of editing. There's performance editing, there's action editing, there's, you know, at some point, sometimes you got to edit the trailer to the project. And a lot of people don't realize that different editors have different strengths. It's just like baseball, you know, some people are great at stealing bases, some people are great at pinch hitting or whatever. And what I've found is, you know, my strength isn't traditional back and forth dialogue. Like I actually have a hard time with just, you know, a normal conversation. Anytime there's some kind of weird aspect to it, maybe it's like a dream sequence or a music montage or something like that. That's really, I really glom onto that.
Yeah, yeah, everybody's got their strengths. And in this case, we see Eddie, who's our editor in this film, in the series. He seems to be like belittled by his boss and stuff like that. What personal experiences did you bring in as a longtime editor into this project? Basically, did you have any rough gigs that you were like, you know what, I'm going, yeah, I'm reflecting on this guy. You know?
Yeah, I don't think I purposely like tried to think, I've been through that. Let me stick it in you. But it's just, I think it's kind of like playing music. You just kind of start playing what kind of comes to your mind and what sort of easy to you. And for me, it was easy to write Eddie because it's basically like writing myself. And then eventually you do like deepen things like, okay, this is his flaw. Let's make it like really a lot worse than what it actually is. And then, you know, you can logically go through and do that stuff. But I know Russ, he was always saying that he drew inspiration once he met me in person. He's like, oh crap, like Eddie is like very much like Dan. Mm-hmm. And so he was like on set, like I didn't realize this, but he was like watching me through the whole shoot and like kind of trying to osmosis in.
That is cool. Now, as you know, the writer and director, how much are you trying to keep your project looking like what you imagined when you were first putting it on the page, and how much are you working with somebody like Russ or Eddie in this, and letting the show kind of take its new form based off of what Eddie's giving you?
I tend to be very open, sometimes to a fault, where I need to make sure I still get the story point in there, because if I don't, then the audience might lose track of this important pivot. But yeah, I think, and then also the truth of the tone of voice and things like that. Like I can't stand it when like a line doesn't sound realistic. So I'll really, in the edit room, I'll really defer to a take that sounds like authentic, as opposed to like, sometimes a take is more funny technically, but I'll tend to go for the more authentic sounding one, which usually the result is the script is a lot funnier than the final result. So when I set out to write the script, when you read it, it's like, oh, it's quirky, it's funny. And then when you see the final product, it tends to be more realistic and maybe meta, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, are you attempting to try to go for that humor that you originally put into the script, or are you seeing, oh, you know what, that more serious take is actually something that's going to benefit the story overall, so let me go with that one instead, and change kind of what you meant to put out there?
It's just like you can't help do what you think is right. You know, it's not really like I'm going for anything. You know, it just it's like you're compelled to do what makes sense to you.
Yeah.
unless you get some note from like, the higher ups or something that says you absolutely can't do something, or like maybe the people that you give your final cut to, or you show your thing. If everyone's saying this doesn't make sense, that doesn't work, if they all give you that same note, then I pay attention. I'm like, okay, I need to change that.
Yeah, it is a bit of a give and take on how much your creative direction needs to be put forward. And sometimes you run into budget or something like that, and you have to worry about all those things. With this one, it's not even the simple premise, but the idea that he can go back and edit the last 24 hours, that feels like that opens up so many questions in my mind immediately when I'm going into it's like, what would I do with this power? Is that something you run into often when you're driving around or washing dishes? You think like, oh, what would I do with the last 24 hours if I could change something? Did that kind of stick with you?
I am so used to editing, I will actually try to undo like, I'll drop something and I'm like, okay, Command Z. Oh wait, there is no real life. So like my mind is already wired that way, which is really freaky.
That Command Z right there just made me twitch a little bit.
Yeah.
I know those buttons too well. Oh goodness. Yeah. So yeah, it is part of your life, and then it's amazing to see that being taken out onto the screen. What message are you trying to make sure the audience walks away with after watching the series?
Well, there's a theme in there. Sometimes partway through you figure out what the theme is, and then once you figure that out, you try to say it in different ways and sort of argue it back and forth. Now, a lot of people start with a theme, and that result can sometimes be really preachy in the end if you're like, start with it. So I try not to do that, but this one had to do with perfection and letting, we're human, so we're imperfect, and to embrace your imperfection. And that's a beautiful thing. So that's kind of the theme of it. But like, I'm the worst at following that theme. Like every day, I'm like, half of my day is not that. So I think I'm like trying to shout at myself saying, hey, look, this is what you need to listen to. Even now, I'm like reminded of like, oh man, like I need to remember that.
Oh yeah, I've got yellow legal notepads everywhere around me that are like, okay, it's okay to do this and do that. So going back to again the writer, director, and editor, is that something you're catching yourself working on? Maybe you feel like, oh yeah, I'm always trying to perfect this, and then after working on this or something like that, you're like, yeah, I could scale it back. 80%'s okay.
It's difficult being multiple things because it'd be like if you were president, like executive, like what are the three branches of the government? If you were all of them, that would be a mistake. So I do try to like rely as much, and if I don't have to, I don't do that. But sometimes on like a more limited shoot, or like if you're, have budget constrictions and things, sometimes you got to do stuff that you wouldn't normally do. But the thing I love about film and TV and the nature of the art form, that was the whole thing that drew me to it in the first place, was that it's a collaborative art form. And no other art form is that intensely collaborative. There are lots of different art forms that are collaborative. There's dance, there's all kinds of stuff. But film on such a massive scale, you're dealing with experts in all these different areas, especially as the director, you're lucky enough to like, you oversee the vision, but you're not the one, like Tarantino famously said, like, you're not the one that's supposed to be the expert in all the departments. That's why you have the departments, and that's why you have the department heads. So relax and just let the people, you hire the people and then let them do their job.
God, that seems so hard to do though. Let's go those reins a little bit.
But once you see how great they are, then it's easier to, like, especially if you got like, you're working with Joaquin Phoenix, Russ was amazing.
Yeah.
And, you see, once that engine turns on, you're just like, it's very humbling, and it's just really cool.
With Chaser, what did you pull from Russ? What did Russ add to it that you were happy to see him kind of take off your plate a little bit?
what I love about Russ is like every take was not only usable but special in some way. So you're in the edit room and it's not like, okay, we got 8 takes and 7 of them aren't that great, but the one we did get one, so that okay, good. No, it was like all 8 takes were great and have different shades to them. So it just makes your work, first of all, it makes it way faster because you don't have to be like scraping through footage. And then second of all, like it takes it up a notch because then you can kind of more go for a style that you want as opposed to just like a maintenance level.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, just of Russ's performance, it is one that's like almost, you can almost feel the anxiety through the screen, and that's all performance and such a wonderful job that he's doing there. And yeah, it makes you anxious watching and like, how are you going to, this is starting to get out of your control and what are you going to do? So Russ is just nailing it in Chaser for sure.
Yeah, and as the lead too, you have to keep track of the arc of the character. Because if you're like a supporting role, you can come in and, you do a couple scenes and then you're done. Mm-hmm. But as especially over an entire, the running time is 3 hours on this thing. So over the whole series, you're shooting all out of order. You got to figure out what's going on. Or, in the middle of the film, his life's getting better and he's super excited and he's like, oh, badass. Well, he can't have that attitude if we're shooting the very beginning of the movie where he's like down and out, so he's got to all that stuff keep track of, and that's a very complex chess game that he plays very well.
That is an impressive skill in its own right, not just acting but also maintaining what emotional state your character is in at the point of filming. Props to such a skilled actor. That is amazing. With Chaser, you have this coming out. Do you have any following seasons expected or anything else in this world that you're developing?
Yes. So, without giving a spoiler, the nature of the series ends in a way that flows into another season. So we're putting together ideas and starting to, shop to studios or see who's interested in possibly picking up the second season.
And this one right here, you're on a lot of different places. You guys can check it out, but you're also on Amazon Prime. How is it working with Prime and working with that distribution? Are you familiar with them from past work?
I haven't worked with them before. So we have a distributor called Buffalo 8, and they're the ones that picked up the series, and then they made the deal with Amazon. So, their props to Buffalo 8. They did a good job with that. And and the next year or whatever, we'll see what happens after that.
Again, adding one more hat to your many roles as marketer now. You got to market this out to the different distributors. It's fun. Chaser is amazing, guys. Please check it out. I'm going to have a link in the description to the trailer and to where they can watch it on Prime and Tubi and many other places. Thank you so much for joining me today, Daniel. It has been an absolute delight.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Again, follow the links in the description and make sure you guys check out Chaser today. All right, Jonathan, that is it for us this week. Do you have any recommendations for everybody as we head out?
I guess go back and watch more Star Trek.
Go back and watch more Star Trek. Eventually, we're going to bring back Trek Freaks, guys. I was just talking to somebody else about that, too. I was like, that's the podcast right there that keeps getting brought up. One of these days, we'll bring it back. We have a new season of Survivor and Outlast podcast coming up. So I want you guys to, if you haven't ever watched Survivor before, the last couple seasons, there are some real hit and misses. But the Rick Devon season, I will say, is the best season of Survivor in maybe 20 seasons. It's so good. And
is that season 39?
I think it's 37. No. Yeah, but it's so, might be 39 now. I'm saying it. It is so good. Join us over on Outlast Podcast. Follow us up over there and join us for the ride. We're going to be doing our pre-show on September 13th, where we'll be going over the entire cast, giving our first reactions to them, going over, they always do these like little questionnaires of like what their personality is. And it's fun to go over those and then see immediately how much, they were lying. They're not fun and outgoing. They're actually jerks. So join us on that. Also for the network, we are giving away 5 copies of Halo Season 2 on Blu-ray. I've got them right next to me. All you have to do is submit to us on social media a picture of your review for any podcast in the Geek Freaks Network. So if you submit that on any of our social media channels, you'll be entered into the drawing. If you've already reviewed the show, that's fine. Do that too. And you'll have a chance to win Halo Season 2. We're going to do the end of that drawing at the end of September. We have another huge giveaway going on next month, and I'm really excited for it too. We're going to do a whole... I'll just kind of tease it here. We've done the canned food drive for Challenge Accepted before. Mm-hmm. Next month, we're going to do something a little different, and it's going to be network-wide, and I'm very, very happy for it. It's going to be cool.
Oh, I do have one recommendation. September 14th, Transformers 1 comes out. I'm going to go see it. You guys should go check it out, too, and let us know what you think about it.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth. That'll be cool. We need to see. All right. That's it, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.